Good morning, Marcelo. How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you. Good morning, Ryan.
God bless technology because we are across the world from each other, but we came across through some mutual connections. And your story of what you did, what you've done as an entrepreneur and serial entrepreneur is pretty amazing. And I'm looking forward to hearing it. If for our listeners, maybe you can kind of go back and share with us the moment that you decided to be an entrepreneur and how you jumped in with both feet.
Sure, Ryan. If you don't mind, let me start saying that, as you said, God bless technology. Nevertheless, I am not that a techie guy. I'm 52, which is, I don't feel old, but in technology, 52 years old may mean a lot. So let me bring you back a couple of decades, maybe 3 decades.
Mm-hmm.
I started my business when I was 24.
Wow.
And as a matter of fact, this happened, and it was not planned. I used to work for a market research company, and honestly, one day I got fired.
Oh, no.
Things were not running very well in that company, as a company. And one Friday, I got into my job, and in the afternoon, suddenly I was called into the owner's office, and he said that the business was not doing that well, and that was going to be my last day working for him. And that was a very difficult decision to digest. Not only because it's always difficult to get fired, but also because at that time we were running through difficult times, family times, economically. No, so I was part of the financial support of the family, and nevertheless, I was not married. I was living with my parents. So that happened on Friday, and on Monday, I was supposed to find a job, which I did. I didn't find it, but I started the process, and I spent like 1 month looking for a job in several companies. And a friend of mine called me that he needed a market research for a very specialized segment, and he offered that to me. Due to the fact that I was unemployed with nothing else to do, and with a lot of bills to pay. I said, "Well, yes,
Of course, right."
Maybe this is a God's call, and I'll take it." And long story short, this is the way I started. As I said, this was random. It was something that happened, and since that first research that happened in 1990, I decided that might be my way to go professionally. I spent one entire year working in my house. I at that time I didn't have the money enough, not even to pay a rent. So I spent that year working, and on the other hand, saving money to start the business. So this is the way I started. As I said,
That's awesome.
1990, with 0 employees, my mother doing some coding, and my sister, bringing the copies.
So how do you go from working in your house and obviously you drank the entrepreneurship Kool-Aid and you decided it was your calling? What were some of the major milestones, because you grew to a very significant size? So what were some of the major milestones as you decided to grow, from whether it was acquiring some certain clients or, employee size? Give us some kind of benchmarks on where you took the company.
I think this is a great question, and I love to talk about this because that this was not easy for me. Because bottom line, I was more like an academic guy. I was not a businessman. No one in my family was a business person. I was more like academic. I studied economics with mathematics, and at the beginning, I didn't realize that it was important to understand the business side or the financial and business issues in a business. I know this sounds crazy, but I was very focused on doing things right, using the best statistics. I'm trying to give to the market the best in Mexico. And this way, the business grew. And, growing a business brings some of the problems that you might not be aware when you don't have them. And those problems are related with a business, with an ongoing business. So, as you asked, which were the milestones? I spent like 10 years building up a financial solid firm without debt. And running the business not very professionally. But 10 years after I started and the business was growing in a 2-digit every year, I thought that it was like a break-even point. Either I could have stayed as a small business with a very, very good profit margin, or maybe to decrease somewhat the profit margin and start hiring, on one hand, professional guys, on the second hand, sharing more of the profits of the company with the first level employees, and giving them a reason to stay, and a reason, not only a reason to stay in the company, but also a feeling that they belong to the company. And another very important milestone happened when an important crisis in Mexico, economical crisis, came. And the way we overcome that crisis is that I increased salaries. I increased some things that I were giving to the employees, like cars and insurances and so on.
Well, and you had a lot of employees too at this point, right? So, I mean, those are not small things that you're giving away.
No. At that time, we were around 100 employees. No, like 90 employees only in Mexico. And the other very important decision was to bring the company into a multinational level. And let me quote, please, multinational, because multinational was another country.
Right.
So it's multi, no?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but that was like more like something for myself. And so I decided that all profits from the previous couple of years were invested in what I've said and opening operations in Colombia.
Oh, wow.
Something that was not only important, but it was, like a huge goal to pursue, not only because of the investment, because of controlling. When you have tried to put your mind in 20 years now, communications were not as are today. So controlling a small company, which is 2,000 miles away from your home or where you work, means a lot.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't have Skype like we're talking on right now.
We didn't have Skype, and all the communications in the digital world were really something new. And please also put your mind in LATAM. So yeah, it was something. It was a break-even point, as I said. And my mind at that time was, if I get multinational, I may overcome future crisis. That was like the main
mindset behind it. What else, Marcelo? When you were as you were starting to grow, and you're at this after 10 years, and you kind of shifting by investing some of the profits into the future vision. I mean, what were some of the things what were some of the goals you were trying to reach? Was it revenue size, employee size? Was it like disrupting an industry? Like, what was driving you every day?
Oh, perfect. Yeah. What was driving me was not the P&L, was the balance sheet. Let me try to explain a little bit this. Most of the businesses, mainly the small businesses, work thinking on the profit and losses of the company, the P&L, what's my revenue, my direct costs, my expenses, and how much I can put into my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Which, bottom line, it's okay. I think that the real change comes when you think more in the balance sheet. I mean, in the value of the company, valuation of the company, because at that time, then you have a mindset change
Yep.
in which you believe more in the long term future rather in the short term.
What were some things that you saw yourself do differently once you had that shift of mindset? Like, what were in your mind? What did it mean to create a valuable company, and what were some of the long term things that you were trying to do to hit those goals?
Due to the fact that we were a service company, the main issue was to create human capital. That was the most important thing by far.
So, in what ways did you do that? Because I know service companies, there's a huge challenge because now that you're in the tech space, and we can talk about that in a little bit later, but the difference between a service-based business like you were in, where you get your services are people, it's a lot more difficult to increase the value and scale it as fast as it is in the software world. So, what were some of the things that you were doing to keep your employees to build that human capital?
Yes, what you said is completely right. I mean, it's by far easier when you have a production plan, for example. If you want to increase your revenue, well, you have to invest, and this is it. It might not be linear, but that's the way it happens. When it's a service, it's quite different. So what I did at that time is to share part of the company with employees. It was not it was what we shared at that time was all profits of the company. So we created, or I created, a compensation structure for my first liners,
Mm-hmm.
in which they were part of the company as owners. Maybe they didn't have shares of the company, but they shared profits of the company, all profits.
Mm-hmm.
Not only in the company they were working, because I started the business in Mexico, then Colombia, and then we opened operations in Venezuela, Ecuador, Panama, and a couple of more countries. So we have a very interesting basket in which all the first liners participated.
How many first liner? What did that look like? Because I know that's you're talking about the executive team, right? A lot of people call it the bench. Having that really really powerful next level management. What was the makeup? Did you have a handful of those people? Like, how did you find them, and how did you trust them to the point where you were able to do all this?
All my first liners were people that worked for me for several years. So I didn't hire. No, I'm lying. Only one managing director, the country manager, which were the one in Venezuela. I hired him directly to take that position. Mm-hmm. as a managing director of the country. All the other cases were people that worked for me at least 5 years before they became first liners.
Got it. So, as you're sharing in the profits of these people, did you see their actions change, or their work or vision or culture? How did things kind of shift as you started doing that?
Well, the first, to share profits is just one part of the equation, because you may share profits, but the other, and your question is very, very, very good, because I know some companies that are very aggressive in terms of the compensation packages that they bring to their employees, but they are not that successful. And I think that the other part of the equation is that I really spent a lot of time training the first liners to change the way they thought at that time. I mean, the mindset. Mm-hmm. To become businessmen or businesswomen, because I used to have a lot of first women in the first line, something that I feel proud of. So with all of them, I spent very important part of my time teaching or teaching. I don't like that word. Maybe showing
mentoring or
yeah,
leading. Yep.
what I learned, not in school, but the hard way.
The school of hard knocks, right?
Yeah, in life school, no?
So yeah, I mean, I love it because I think that's one of the key ingredients that you see in successful companies. I'm just curious, Marcelo. When you said that you were an economics guy and you were not a business guy, but you started making these very intelligent business decisions along the way. Where did you find the influence, or where did it spark that you should be looking at future value and you should be doing things like this? Like, was it just through trial and error? Did you have resources or people that were kind of guiding you along the way?
No, honestly, no. I never hired any external advisor. No, honestly, this was something that I have to say that I don't know from where did it come from.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say that maybe something very important. I am not that greedy. I mean, I think that money, it's a consequence. And when money is a consequence, you really enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
When you think that money is the goal, I think that you try to pursue very short-term goals. And I really believe from the bottom of my heart what I've said.
It's a lot more fun too when everybody's there, right? I mean, if everybody's in the trenches all working together, it's a heck of a lot more fun.
Yeah, sure. And I'm going to say something that might sound weird, but you feel right when your personal compensation at the end of the year, it's very close to the one of your first liners when the year is not the best of all. I don't know if I said it this clear.
No, I think you're right. I mean, because if you've had a hard year or if things are going, I mean, everybody looks to you. I mean, you're the one that everybody's looking at, and I think yes, you still own the company, so the future value of that whole entity is yours. But if you're taking down huge salaries and a lot of perks while everybody else is suffering, I think it says a lot about character.
Yeah. Now, exactly what you said is driving the company with the balance sheet and not with P&L.
Mm-hmm. So, as you're doing this and you're looking to the future, I mean, what was the end goal? I mean, because you've been growing the company and you grew it significantly too. And there's a couple other, milestones for when you decided to partner up and do some other various things with the business. So how did you get to that point? Like, where were you going? And then how did those things change as you were, because I think it was 2002, right? So maybe explain what was the triggering event that opened up your eyes to partnering up with someone, and why did you go down that route?
Because I'm Mexican and I went through maybe 6 very big and important economic crises. When I used to study economics in the 80s, and we received at that time at the universities people coming from the US, obviously to discuss economics in rough times. For most of the people from other countries, was something a little bit like theoretical, But when you go through those crises, when I say crisis, just take into consideration that in 2009, for example, the GDP in Mexico decreased in real terms 7%.
Wow!
I mean, it's a roller coaster.
Yep.
So when I decided that it was important to partner with a bigger company, a multinational company, nevertheless, we were multinational.
They were in 3 countries, right? No.
No, at that time I was in 4 countries, but my partner was in 110. Well, a big difference, no?
Yeah, right. So how did they knock on your door, or how did the whole thing kind of transpire?
It was also, that was something, I would say a lucky issue, a lucky day, because this was a German-based company. The name of the company is GfK. At that time, it was the fourth largest company around the world, research company, market research company. And they came down to Mexico looking for opening operations in LATAM. So Mexico was one of the countries. It was the second most important one in the region. And they were looking for a Mexican company to partner with. And as a matter of fact, I was not in their radar. I was not in their loop. And this is something that they said to me. I came to their attention because a couple of previous meeting with another two Mexican research companies didn't go that well. So they came to my office, and I think that, well, I really believe, and when you have a good feeling with people, they were really lovely people, very academic, and I think that was like the first impression, very good. The second very important thing is that with one key, at that time, they were able to open 4 countries. And business-wise, I think it was a very smart decision on their side. Because at that time, I was running Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, and Ecuador. So...
And how many employees did you have at that point?
At that point, we were around 500, around 500, yes. Yeah.
So, when they're, so you obviously, I agree with you too. When you get the internal feelings, it's like a first date, right? I mean, you kind of feel the synergies with those people. So then after that, there's a lot of more of the technical stuff that has to happen, which is valuing the company, understanding how the deal is structured and stuff. How did you guys start going through those conversations, and what were the back and forth of the outcomes that you guys were each trying to hit?
Well, it was very straight and forward. We signed an NDA, and they did I'm sorry, I forgot the word.
Like due diligence, or like kind of like an audit?
Yeah, sorry, yes. They did due diligence for 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, for 6 months.
What did they do? Just like send a team of people over to your office and just camp out for half a year, or what?
No. No, they hired at that time, I think that it was Ernst & Young.
Yep.
So I have them in the company for 6 months in all the countries that I said, in the 4 countries.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So they went first through all financials. They went a lot of time through operations, because in the business that I used to have, operations, were a nightmare. Operations is always difficult in all companies, but in market research, it is a nightmare. It was really, really something important to look at.
Well, you got 500 employees, 4 countries, and it's all people. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was, everything was very, it was not technological. Obviously, we used to have technology, but in market research, the way we used to do it, remember, we used to do all face-to-face interviews. Door to door.
Oh my gosh.
So when you asked at that time for a market research, you have to wait a couple of months, maybe 3 months, to have results. You can have results maybe in 5 minutes.
Right.
With that people answer.
Oh, I love it. So what during those 6 months, was there anything that like got you to the point where you were annoyed or were regretting going down that route, or surprises that came up?
No, something that they did really well is when we signed the NDA and, the first agreement, we signed a formula.
Okay.
So, and the formula was very easy. It was an average of the EBITDA of the previous 2 years, multiplied by a factor, plus 20% of the average of the previous revenue of the previous couple of years also.
Okay.
So we have a formula.
Did you know, Marcelo, like when you were going into that, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are not overly aware of what EBITDA is or how to get to it or what it means or what those multipliers are. So did you know before going into that kind of what the formula should be and how you get to it, or was that an education process for you?
Yes, I knew it, and I knew it because I sold my company to GFK. But something that I haven't said to you is that I was in a selling process for almost 2 years with another two companies. Obviously,
Really?
yeah. And those years were those were really difficult times in terms.
So that was that different companies
Yes.
that you owned, or was it for different processes for the same company that you were trying to bid against?
No. There were two other companies. As a matter of fact, one of that companies were a US based company. So
Really?
there were another two multinational market research companies. So they were looking for us, and so when I got into the negotiation process with GFK, I had a PhD.
Well, I love it. I trust me. I've been through some of those scenarios too. So these other companies that you own, I mean, what were the major milestones of that PhD that you learned that you might not have done correctly through the other ones that you brought to the table with the current company?
I love that question because the real issue and why I didn't say yes to the other companies is that the formula that they were proposing for the deal was a discounted
Discounted cash flow. Yeah.
with a present value.
Mm-hmm.
So what I think about that is that it may work for some companies in some segments, but in my case, it was. I thought at that time, and I not at that time. I really believe, even nowadays, that it is quite not only difficult, it's quite unfair to get evaluation on what's going to happen, because it's not only that. The small letters in the contract is, what if you don't get to the point
Right.
that we are agreeing on? So if you don't, then comes tons of
Stipulations and ways that they don't have to pay you, right?
yes, penalties. So if you don't get to that point by 10%, you will be penalized with blah 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 blah. What I answered, or what I said to those companies is, are you really aware that you are dealing with a Latin company? That I don't know what's going to happen, for example, in Venezuela, with all my respect, Venezuela and to all countries. But you know that I live every day with the Jesus on my mouth that's in Mexico, trying not to go through a huge economic crisis like the one that I talked to you a few minutes ago in Mexico or in Ecuador or in Colombia. So the big difference, and the reason that I said yes to GFK, is the future is something that we will, as partners, is something that we have to build together.
That's awesome.
To pay you for what you've done. The condition for that to work is that you have to sell the company in tranches.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, Marcelo, were the other two companies, were they like financial buyers, which is why they were doing the discounted cash flow versus like a strategic partner like GFK?
No. If you mean that if they were like venture capitals or something like that.
Yeah, or like private equity or something like that, or were they actually other market research firms?
No, as a matter of fact, those were market research companies.
Huh.
Yeah. But the huge difference is that those companies were managed by people more financial oriented, and GFK used to be a company very technical, very focused importantly in the technical side. So the management board of GFK at that time, all of them were part of the of academy. All of them were researchers for their entire life. So, they cared at that
They got it.
more about the people rather than financials. And I love that.
So that's well, it's amazing, especially if you cared about your employees, like you had showed with the profit sharing and the training and mentoring and all that stuff. So now that you go down through the process and you got Ernst & Young there for 6 months, and you sign the deal. Now you've got 50% partners. What was it like going from a solo entrepreneur, being able to call all the shots, to having a bunch of partners?
For the first years, and when I say the first years, let me say something. I had a 2-year contract at the beginning. So I was supposed to sell the second part of the company. No, I'm sorry, 3-year contract at the end of the 3rd year.
Oh, really?
And yes, but we did an addendum, and we added a couple of years more because we were in a honeymoon. We were very happy. I was very happy with them. I suppose that they were happy with me. Otherwise, they wouldn't sign the addendum.
Mm-hmm. So
answering you, at the beginning, it was a honeymoon. At the end, I have to say that it was not that fun.
So when you say the end, how many years? So what changed? I guess maybe before, so how many years did it start to the relationship and dynamics start to change, and what changed about it?
It changed for the last 2 years, and what drove the change at that time, it was the whole management board changed within GfK, and what happened at that time is that what I said to you, that it used to be a management board very people oriented and very technical and methodological and those kind of more academic. The management board changed for people more on the financials, and at that time we were struggling as partners because I was defending my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, we were giving very good profit margin. As a matter of fact, the best profit margin in the region. But they wanted at the time for me to change, for example, my compensation program.
Yeah.
And I can understand that. It is quite difficult to have a Mexican employee earning more money than a German one in the same level. And I really can understand that. But that's something that if you change it, you might pull the trigger. And I was not very happy with that. I didn't feel well at the time moving. I said no. So we entered into fights, and they said, you have to change. And I said, no, I'm not changing, because 50% of the company, I still making decisions. And in the meanwhile, if I'm giving you back a very good profit margin, I understand that I'm putting you in a very difficult political problem, but I have to defend my business model. And obviously, what won at that time, it was the size, no, and it was logical to change the company.
Well, and but it's frustrating, being in that position where you signed up for one thing and things change, regardless of whether it financially makes sense or not. And all of a sudden you just have different beliefs than the partner that you originally signed up with. So it just puts you in an emotional spot that you didn't want to be in. So how did you get out of that? I mean, did one side, did you or them decide it was time to then purchase the rest of the business? How did the whole rest of the transaction actually unfold?
No, honestly, that decision was taken by them. The time, the addendum, the term of the addendum expired, and I received a phone call from the president of the company saying that they were not signing another addendum, and that they wanted me to leave the company. And at that time, I agreed. But nevertheless, it was not a question. honor.
Yeah, it was a demand, but I agreed.
I wanted to feel that it was like something negotiated.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was not feeling right in the company, and they were not feeling right with me, so they took the decision. They hired a managing director only for Mexico. So what they did is they split. I used to run the company as a as one company in all my countries, and I was respected while I was partner. When I left the company, they divided the countries, or they ran the countries one on one. So they hired a managing director for Mexico, because all the rest of the countries that I used to manage, they had a managing director. So they kept each managing director, and they hired one for Mexico. And I spent, like, honestly, like 1 hour with him. I spent a couple of months. But bottom line, giving the control of the company to this managing director, I spent honestly 1 hour, and I said, the only thing that you need to do to make this company successful is don't move the business model. Stick to it. Stick to the business model. Don't change the business model that I have. This company runs well the way it is, and just enjoy the ride. I don't know what happened. I think
I was going to say, based on what you said, I can probably guess how they approached it. What was it like, Marcelo, handing off your baby like this, the company that you created? What was the thoughts in your head, the emotions that you were feeling as you were going through this?
I think that the best way to resume that is, I cried for 1 day.
Yeah.
The feeling was, it was like a mixed feeling. I had a lot of mixed feelings. On one side, you feel very good because you feel that the job was well done in your life. But on the other hand, at that time, I was 46. I mean, to be 46, you are not a teenager, but you are not prepared to retire, to retirement. So,
and your whole identity was wrapped up in your company too.
Yeah, sure. So it's your baby, and the feeling is like when someone takes away from you the safety net, and you are in a circus. And when you have a safety net, obviously, I'm not saying that you don't take risks, but it is different than when someone says, "Okay, you have to do this," without now the safety net. So
the safety net for you, Marcelo, was it a financial safety net or an emotional safety net?
No, very, very good question. It was more an emotional one. It was more the company, because financially, now you have cash. Now you have money. Yep. You were paid, no? But and this is something that I didn't like at the beginning. A lot of people came to me at the time saying, "Wow, you should be very happy now. You can play golf." As a matter of fact, I don't play golf. Now you can play golf, and you can relax, and you can enjoy. And the only thing that I was not doing, I was not enjoying the time. I was not having fun at all.
Yeah.
But people tend to see things only in a strict money driven way, and then you realize that money, obviously, it's important, but it is not the most important thing. And mainly when you have your primary necessities covered. And when I say primary, I'm not talking about a fitting, or I'm not talking about the house. I'm saying that, I mean, I don't have a private jet. I don't need it. I don't have a yacht. I don't need it. Really, I don't need it.
Well, I think you hit on a lot of extremely important things. I had my own personal experience very similar to yours, and I was actually talking to another gentleman that was on the show, and we were really talking about this entire scenario. And I like how you described it as a safety net, and I don't think people understand what that safety net consists of until afterwards. And then you realize, oh shit, like I had a lot of other emotional needs that were being met through my business that I wasn't aware of. And I'm curious, what did you notice? What did that safety net consist of for you? If you were to because I think you've recreated that in those dynamics. But what did you miss the most?
Well, I think I'm an entrepreneur. That's more than a businessman. I think I am an entrepreneur. So my personal safety net is to feel that I'm creating things every day.
Yeah.
So let me tell you what happened afterwards. I opened a recycling company, a recycling company that I have today. I own today. We recycle Tetra Pak. I really believe in the green business, and I really believe that this world deserves something better than what we are doing with the earth. So I started this recycling company. A company today is the largest private and recycling Tetra Pak recycling company in Mexico. But it was not good enough. It was not good enough because nevertheless it's a good size business. It has 65 employees. I needed something more in the intellectual side. And then Fundari came to my world. Fundari came to my world and to my life in 2016 with a very good friend of mine. We started saying that we have to take advantage about technology, about what was happening in the world, about our experience. And I really believe that the financial world will change a lot. It's changing and will change. We will not recognize the financial world in 5 years now.
I would agree with that.
So I want to be part of it. And then Fundari came, or we started working in ideas, and Fundari came to life.
So I love it, and that's a good segue into kind of what you're doing now. Because so you said, and I think you hit the nail on the head, which is you feel like you want to be creating, and you want to be evolving yourself as you're moving into all these different areas. So what is it that, so maybe expand Fundari and explain, what is the passion? What do you want to grow? Because I think you've reinvented yourself in a pretty amazing way. So, I guess maybe two questions. One is, what are you personally trying to accomplish through this, and how does that tie into the business, and what is it that the business actually does?
Okay, let me say first that maybe this is a little bit. I did it because I'm selfish, and why I'm selfish, because I have to build again my safety net, and my safety net is I have to feel that I'm doing something financially that might have obviously results for me, but I want to feel right. I have 3 daughters, and I really want them to feel proud about me. So why Fundari? And why Fundari is so important for me in this part of building up my safety net, and why it's important. As I said, I'm selfish, but it's important because I think it's important for society. Let me give you some numbers. In Mexico, financial banking penetration it's below 40, 37%. I mean, 37% of the people have any kind of bank account. Just imagine, or try to imagine, a country with this figure growing and trying to move from the undeveloped world to the first world. It's impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Period. It's impossible. I mean,
right.
We have to do something. And the typical and traditional financial segment is not going to do so. And it's not going to do so because they don't care. And they don't care because they don't need it. They don't need it.
Right.
So with this in mind, Fundari came to life. And again, I'm selfish because I want to feel good. But on the other hand, I really want to feel good because I know that if we succeed with Fundari, a lot of people will have a better life.
And I think it's an amazing thing that you're doing, because one of the gentlemen that I had spoke to, we were talking about, maybe there's like a call to action to have businesses switch and have more of an altruistic purpose instead of just managing to the balance sheet. So I think, I think it was very awesome how you called out, you said you were selfish, but I would disagree with that, because I think what you're doing you're accomplishing a lot of things at once. So it's not like you're chasing another dollar to create. You're trying to change something that is going to help everybody, and everybody should win. So I don't think that there's anything selfish in what you're doing.
When I say selfish is, and maybe let me elaborate a little bit, taking some words that you said now, altruism. I think it's something that all of us have to do, but it's not the right way to move a country. So I think that we have to take advantage of technology to make a better world, to make a more democratic world, not in political terms, I mean, in terms of way of life. So I decided at the time not to work on altruistic companies. No, nevertheless, I do, and I do it so I like it. But on the other hand, I really believe that if you want to succeed and you want a country to grow, then you have to have businesses, and if you have businesses, you have to have profits. But you have to share the profits not only with your team but also with the rest of the society. How? Having fair enough profit margins and thinking on how to do a business that really matters.
Oh, I mean, well said. That is some amazing stuff, and I agree with you. And I think it's very cool how self-aware you are, and to be able to line all these things up so that way you can enjoy the ride while changing how things actually operate. And to go down into the little bit of the technical stuff, because I think it's pretty cool, and it's a hot topic these days. But so Fundary, that you guys have the technology stack is blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and smart contracts, right? So you're beachheading into this world that everybody's talking about these days, correct?
Yeah, we are working on the very, very updated technical side. Yes.
So what would be success for you if you were to look at 2020 with your team and your technology and the mission? What would really get you going, and what's the milestones you're trying to hit?
In the very short term, the first milestone is to have an ICO. And when I say it in the very short term, we are thinking about this within the next maybe 3 months. And this is an important milestone because to do an ICO, it's a very healthy way to have enough economical resources to build up the business. Let me say something very quickly. Fundary, the first product in Fundary will be a peer-to-peer lending platform, a platform that it's already working. We are just moving this platform to smart contracts. This is something that should be finished by the end of the month, end of January. And so this is the first milestone. In a parallel, we are building up what's very important for us, which is our ambassador program. This is something that maybe we should, in some other show, if you like, for sure, I can explain it to you. But our ambassador program is something that we really believe that will help us to increase the business quickly, but on the other hand, will help us to keep the default rate very low in all the loans.
Well, it's your people skills. I mean, you manage 700 people across the world. I mean, it's you're combining technology and people, and I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we are focusing on having at least 20,000 ambassadors within the next couple of years.
Holy cow!
yeah. These people will not be employees, but what's important about this is these ambassadors and the people borrowing the money and the people receiving the money, all of them will have some kind of financial benefit. So yes, this is why I said to you, this business may have a huge, very important social impact. Very important.
Well, you're changing things, and you're enjoying the ride, and I can hear the passion in your voice with it, which is so fun because it sounds like you've rebuilt your safety net and you're you're going to check a lot of boxes in the process too, which is just a lot of fun.
Honestly, I'm very grateful with you because you, with this interview, you are helping me to keep on building up my safety net.
So I love it. I'm definitely going to be grabbing that analogy from here on out. So Marcelo, what is the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you?
I mean, I'm on your disposal anytime. You can email me. The best way to contact me is through email.
And I can have that email in the show notes too. So
yeah, sure. Yeah, please do it. It will be a pleasure to answer anyone who has a question or whatever.
If there's one thing that you want to highlight from all the stuff that we talked about, or one thing you want to leave our listeners with, what do you think it would be?
Yeah, we should never surrender, and we should always keep our entrepreneurship vision. I really believe that this world not only deserves it only needs it. So yeah, I love also what you do, what I know about you, and what I wanted to say is all the new generations, they have a lot of things to do. We have to use technology to have a more democratic world with less differences in terms of way of living. This is something that we have to work on.
Well, Marcel, I'll tell you what, I want to live in the world that you envision. I can tell you that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan. It was really a great pleasure to talk with you.